Hello and welcome to another my NT marriage video. I was watching The Predator the other day and there was a line in it where the woman said, autism is the next link in the evolutionary chain. Or I think her words were, some people say. Either way, I imagine the person who wrote the script has a son or a family member on the spectrum, and hence why they included that in the script. They've probably seen a few of the things, their skills and such, and thought, let's give them praise where the praise is worth. And I like the concept of it because I feel like people on the spectrum are probably the most bullied of all of the people. I mean, I know that, for example, people don't like gay people, people bash gay people, them as a group are not necessarily liked. I feel like it's getting better over time. But people on the spectrum, I mean, put your hand up if you've been bullied and you're autistic, Every person I've spoken to who's on the spectrum has been bullied to some capacity, some way worse than others. But generally speaking, there's not a lot of understanding or acceptance of these people who are different, who operate differently, who have different ways of interacting with people, different interests. They might be introverted, things like this, and people are just awful and relentless and mean. So I can understand somebody wanting to praise them and make them feel better and get other people who aren't on the spectrum thinking that maybe people on the spectrum are more awesome than you give them credit for. And like I said, I really like the concept of that, to build them up and get people to really lay off them and stop bullying them and things like that. However, the flip side of that, the reality side of that, is that sadly people on the spectrum are very unlikely the next link in the chain of evolution, because evolution means to evolve generally to a better species, not a worse species. And that's not to say that people on the spectrum are worse. That's not where I'm going with this. But the reality is those on the spectrum really, really, really struggle with life. They struggle with human interactions. They struggle with understanding their own feelings. They struggle with understanding facial expressions, body language, words and sentences in general, nuances. Some of them can't care for themselves. They don't brush their teeth, they don't wash their hair. And I'm talking level 1. I think that if you're level 3 autism, that's where you're really locked into yourself. That is definitely not an evolutionary chain link, the next link in the chain. I know what I'm trying to say. Level 2, you're faring a bit better. But I'm talking specifically about level 1s, the high-functioning autistic people who go around in the world, and you would barely know that they're on the spectrum, except that they're slightly different and a little bit quirky. They're the ones that I'm talking about. And those people, there are categories within those people's spectrums within, where these people just don't function well. They can't look after themselves. If they didn't get married and have a wife, then they wouldn't have anybody to look after them. If they stayed home, maybe their parents would look after them. But these people just aren't doing well. And if you're in a situation where you're in a relationship and that person's doing everything for you and the family, doing all the cooking and the cleaning, and they're reminding you to change your clothes and brush your teeth and things like this, it's unfortunate that that's their situation. That's definitely not the next link up in the evolutionary chain. that's somebody who's really struggling, and that's sad, and we need to give those people more support and understanding, as well as the people doing all the work for them. They definitely need more support. But those people, I can tell you, if you're got a person you're looking after and you're doing all their washing and their cleaning and their cooking and they're organising their appointments and doing everything for them, like this poor adult is functioning at a child level, you're definitely not thinking they're the next link in the evolutionary chain. You're realising that this person is struggling. So yeah, while I think it's a really cool concept to give them that kind of praise and compliment, and some of them do have some really amazing skills, I just don't think that it's a factual statement. It's like saying people who are blind or people who have Down syndrome are the next evolutionary chink in the link in the chain. I was trying to say chink. There's chinks in chains, isn't there? Anyway, as cool as those people may be, and everybody has a right to a decent, respectful life without being bullied and treated like crap and that sort of thing, from an evolutionary perspective, the aim is to get better and become better people, higher functioning people. And sadly, people who are on the spectrum aren't higher functioning. I think that evolutionarily, people who can do the things that autistic people can do and then some would be the next link. So my husband is level 1, and he's OCD, compulsive, perfectionist, a little bit controlling about that because he feels like if things aren't perfect, the world's going to fall apart and die, or his world's going to fall apart and die. And so he's often writing me to be perfect, be better, be good, be brilliant, completely missing the point that I already am, doing most of the things that he says that I should be doing. He looks after himself, he brushes his teeth, he washes regularly, he washes his clothes, he does a lot of chores around the house, he buys the children their school books and their school clothes and does the shopping, and he's definitely not a person I'm looking after. He's very autonomous and can look after himself. But when it comes to relationships and knowing how people operate and working those relationships and things like this, he does fall short. He doesn't know that he falls short because he doesn't know what it would look like to not be himself. I mean, how would he and why would he? But he falls short in that he can't really relate to people. He doesn't even know that he doesn't relate to people. He and I can have conversations, and we do converse here and there, but he has no idea that our conversations are shallow, that they're not deep, that he's not letting me in, he's not getting to know me in a way that other people can. He doesn't ask the children how they're going. He doesn't take an interest in their lives. He talks to his parents and he's got friends, but he rarely makes an effort to see people. They make an effort to see him. So even as high functioning as he is, there are levels of interaction and relationships that he's just not mastering. And that isn't the next step in evolution, because somebody who could function as well as him and do those interrelational things would be more evolutionarily better. I feel like it's a mistruth, an untruth, a misconception to say that autistic people are the next link. The reality is that they're struggling. The reality is that they need far more help than we're giving them. They need far more acceptance than we're showing them. I mean, the fact that they're bullied so badly, that means there's a whole lot of people out there who, firstly, are awful. If you're a bully, you suck. But also, it wrecks them even more. And this is the thing that I really don't like about people who bully people. You make the person worse off. A lot of people who are bullied as children and teenagers never get over that trauma. It stays with them for their entire adulthood. They never really move past it, or maybe they can with a little bit of healing and therapy and such. But it's quite damaging. You constantly hear those voices in your head. You're not good enough, you suck, you're ugly, you're fat, you're whatever it is that you're telling these people. And so then when you get people who are on the spectrum who are really unself-aware, they probably wouldn't necessarily know the harm that the bullying has done to them. I mean, they remember it and they think about it, they talk about it, but they wouldn't really understand the damage that that's done to them and the harm that it then does to those around them because they never got through their own trauma. My husband is a classic example of that. He had an upbringing where his parents were really quite strict and expected perfection from him. And he just kind of went into adulthood thinking that's normal, that's what you do. He didn't even realise that it had damaged him and that him coming into a relationship and doing that to us would damage his family. And so yeah, I wish that bullying could be stamped out. I think it's a really ugly trait in humans. We've got many, but that's one of them. And so that's just a side note to those who bully people on the spectrum. You're making the situation worse, thank you. Even when you're bullying people who aren't on the spectrum, you're making the situation worse. You make humanity a worse place. But for those on the spectrum who have experienced bullying, it's very unlikely that they will seek the help or the therapy that they need and therefore move through that pain and become better people. And they're certainly not going to be better people for being bullied. That's certainly not where that would end. So I do wish that that was something that we would stamp out, that people wouldn't bully them, that they would get more understanding and sympathy, and that they would be allowed to go through school unharmed. I hate the concept that we're being mean to this group of people because they're quirky and different and we don't like them. I'll tell you a little bit of a story here. It's not about a person who was on the spectrum. But my children went to school with a young boy who had an overweight mum and a really skinny dad who I think was doing drugs of some description. And their little boy was in one of my children's classes and he was bullied because he had a fat mum and a skinny dad and his mum was overweight, so ha ha ha, we're picking on you because your mum's overweight. And we're picking on you because your dad looks weird and unattractive because he's doing drugs and he doesn't look well. And on top of that, you're this skinny little runt who comes to school with dirty clothes and no lunch and boo hiss, we're going to hate on you. And I told my children, don't engage in that, ever. This boy cannot help who his parents are. He doesn't get to choose that his mum's not overweight or that his dad's not a druggo. He doesn't get to choose that his clothes aren't washed or that he has no money for lunch. You shouldn't be hating on people for things that are out of their control that they cannot change. And hopefully that sunk into my children and they left this poor boy alone. But that's just an aside. And where I'm going with that obviously is hating people and bullying people for being autistic is really crappy. They cannot change that. It'd be like picking on somebody for being blind. You're awful if you do that. So yeah, whilst bullying is pretty awful, and I wish that no person on the spectrum would ever be bullied, and I like that we praise them for the skill sets that they do bring to society, and we definitely need to do that more often, because maybe they'd function better as adults if they did have that praise. I still do not believe that they are the next link in the evolutionary chain. I think that the predator did not get that right. Anyway, that's my 2 cents worth. Maybe it was $5 worth. Anyway, enough from me. Over to you. Drop a comment below if you can relate. And as always, thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I really do appreciate it.